All right, perfect. Well, hi everyone. It's wonderful to see you all. My name is Angela Love, and I am a senior video specialist at Google. Today, there's going to be a group of us speaking to you about how to integrate YouTube into your advertising, but also talk about the personable and measurable side of the digital ecosystem. So first, I'm going to allow my lovely compatriots here to introduce themselves before we get started.
Hi all, I'm Brian Binder. I'm a Senior Director of Programmatic at Tenuity.
Hi everyone, I'm Lauren Wolfen. I'm VP of Product at Tenuity.
Great. All right. So they did stick me up here and they turned on my microphone, but I don't want to talk at you all for the next 35 minutes. I would love some additional interaction. We're going to ask you a series of questions today. If you can just raise your hand and answer, that's going to be lovely. I would also really appreciate it if you take out your cell phones. We are going to need them shortly, so if you just want to go ahead and pull them out, you'll be prepped and ready. And to that end, I'm going to start today with data, because that's what we do at Google. We love to collect data. According to Nielsen, the average person age 18 plus spends 79 minutes a day on YouTube. Now, this is a cumulative number. So we're counting how much time you spend on your mobile phone, your TV screen, that desktop, or even your tablet. So we're going to start with an easy question. How many of you use YouTube? Got a couple of hands? All right, good. I would have been disappointed if you came into this session otherwise. So how many of you think you watch 79 minutes a day? And be honest, you can't hurt my feelings. All right, there's a handful of hands. There's a half hand, I'll take it. It's really like a Grey's Anatomy episode if you think about it, so it's not that much time. So I promised you we were going to get to your phones. If you want to go ahead and pull those out for me. And I want you to open up the YouTube app on your cell phone. Behind me are a series of instructions. I'm going to talk you through it as well. In the upper right-hand corner, if you click on your profile image and then click on the option labeled Time Watched, this shows you your average daily watch time across the last 7 days on YouTube. Is it a little bit higher than you thought it was going to be? A couple more minutes? Yeah? At least you didn't start playing an ad, because that would have been real inconvenient. Click on your profile picture in the upper right-hand corner, and then click on Time Watched. And it'll show you your average daily, and then across the last 7 days. So I will call out that the stat you're seeing on your phone is specific to your mobile phone watch time only. It is not counting your watch time across other devices. So I'm going to walk you through another scenario. Have you ever been at home and you've got your TV on in the background, but you're actually playing on your phone? I see a couple of head nods. I do the same thing. I am very guilty of this. It's the environment in which we consume content these days. It's also where I do a lot of my impulse buying, including today's earrings. So I'll show you them later. Now, how many of you have actually clicked on a YouTube ad? Oh, okay. There's more hands than I thought there was going to be. This is good. Okay, it means I'm doing my job right. So it's not always seamless when you're clicking on that YouTube ad. It's going to take you away from content that you chose to watch. And we know that. Personally, for me, when that happens, I'll pull out my cell phone and I'll open up a Chrome browser and I'll type in the brand name, or I'll type in the product name that I just saw on the ad. Does this sound familiar? Does anybody else do this too? There's a lot of nods. It's good because it's incredibly common. In fact, Google has found a way to report out on that specific action, and Lauren's going to get to that a little bit later in today's session. There are over 2 billion people. I know this is our hero stat, so you've heard it a lot, but there are 2 billion people, not just consumers, not just users, but people logging onto the YouTube app every day and watching content. So far, we've ran through a lot of common behaviors, but I also wanted to walk you through how I use YouTube as a person and not just a Googler. So when I'm at work, 9 times out of 10, I'll have a thematic playlist going on in the background. You can see here, this is a screenshot of my YouTube home feed. Interspersed are SNL skits. There's a movie recommendation for me to watch. There's a missed episode of Hot Ones. And if you look in the bottom right, that is a Dark Academia playlist. Now, if you have not searched for a Wednesday-themed dark classical playlist, you are missing out. There is nothing like answering emails with the dramatic cello in the background. So much so, I'm giving you the link after today's session, so just make sure you see Ronnie on your way out. Now, for me, YouTube is ingrained in my day-to-day life. I have found a way to watch any video that I really want, whether it's entertainment or educational, at any time on any device. For me, during my commute, I use my cell phone quite a bit. When I'm at work, I'm a heavy desktop user. Otherwise, my boss would yell at me for being on my cell phone so much. And then when I'm at home, I am a TV screen user. And the YouTube app on TV screens is growing in popularity. According to Nielsen, this is a big one for us too, so be excited, but the average watch time on TV screens for YouTube has surpassed any streaming service, any cable TV channel, and any broadcast network. We are telling you that there is more people watching YouTube on TV screens than they are on Netflix, than they are on, let's see, who else do we have up there? Disney+. And the best part is that that has been a consistent act for the last 7 months. This data is coming from December, so we have seen for the last 7 months that that holds true. People are coming to YouTube. So YouTube really, it influences our lives. It influences our lifestyles. Video has never been used more today than it has at all. You have families gathering in living rooms to watch your favorite show. You also have people watching for quick hits of a comedy sketch on their commute on the train. Maybe you go to YouTube to find an answer to a problem or learn how to decorate your brand new apartment. YouTube is also a place where you can find new passions. You can learn about something new. YouTube is the only place that has something for everyone. Now, we as the audience get to choose what we want to watch. We get to dictate what our definition of primetime content is. And that's why we love it. That's why people come and watch YouTube. So what I want to challenge you with here today, think about the different ways that you as a person use YouTube. Think about the different ways you access that content, whether it's on your TV screen or your phone. And then I want to challenge you to think about how you as a marketer can meet your customer in all of those moments that I am online, all of the times that I'm searching for something to watch on YouTube. How do we measure the messy metrics that come from a cross-device and a cross-screen world? Put simply, we have to stop assuming that YouTube operates in a silo. YouTube is a large part of a vast digital ecosystem. And our goal today is to help clarify how to measure in that ecosystem. So I am going to cede the stage to Brian. He's going to share some information with you about how he uses YouTube. He did make fun of some of my searches, I'll have you know. And then he's going to help to talk about how you and your business can integrate into the world of YouTube to drive your own metrics.
Thank you, Angela. So as Angela was mentioning, YouTube is a large, diverse ecosystem, which means that it's different things to different people at different times. So people come to YouTube to learn something new, to engage with different people, or simply just to be educated. And in a little bit, we'll talk a little bit about how we think about YouTube specifically, and how the brands can actually interact with their audience on YouTube across the entire ecosystem. But first, keeping it a little bit lively, quick poll, raise of hands. How many people subscribe to at least one YouTube channel? Okay, more than I was thinking. Now, of all the people that subscribe to YouTube channels, how many people click to get notifications? Not as many, okay. Well, how I typically interact with YouTube is actually through notifications and subscribe. So, quick screenshot of how my YouTube app actually looks when you look at the subscriptions. I subscribe to a lot of things. I'm a serial subscriber. And this is how I typically interact with YouTube on a daily basis. And if you take a look, you'll see that I have a diverse set of interests. So I'm into sports, I'm into cars, I'll take a look at tech, running. So kind of runs the gamut, and this is only a portion of the things that I look at on a daily basis. But the other thing to take a note is I actually customize my notifications. So if you look at the bell icons, you'll see that some of them are lit up. Those are the ones that I like to make sure that I get all the content from on a daily basis. So every time they're dropping new content on their channel, it gets pushed right to my notifications. And as you can see on the right-hand side, I could just slide down and take a look at this content whenever I have a free moment during the day. And kind of similar to Angela, most of the time it's actually when I'm watching TV in the evening, sitting on my couch, and I'll actually just put on the YouTube channel that I didn't get a chance to watch during the day. So for me, this is like a really great opportunity to start to engage with YouTube and how I personally use it. The other way that I use it as well is on Google. Does anybody else do this? They'll go to Google, type in a question, and have a video actually populate. So a couple weeks ago, I had a house project that I had to do. I had to install a fence. I'm not handy in any way, shape, or form for those of you who don't know me. So I went to Google and typed in how to install a fence post. All the websites came up. They gave the instructions that you would typically get on Google. But also, we got a relevant video that was actually served to me as well. And not only was it relevant, but it was also queued up to the specific portion of the video that was very relevant to my search query. So now we're starting to look at how YouTube is interacting not just on YouTube, but how people are interacting with YouTube on Google. So it's, as Angela was mentioning earlier, it's very important just to think about like YouTube not just in a silo, but just how it interacts across the whole Google ecosystem and the whole video ecosystem itself. And the reason that this is important for us as well is it gives us the insight into the power of the platform from a user perspective. And us as marketers and as brands, we have to think, how are people engaging with the content and engaging with the platform itself for us to actually be able to effectively engage with the users as well. And that brings me to somebody who I think does a pretty good job as of today. In my experience, and as you go back to my subscriptions, you see I engage with a lot of car content from a video standpoint, but also I read a lot of car blogs and just a lot of content on the web as well. So I get a lot of Audi ads. And even when I'm not looking at specific car content, Audi has actually deemed that I'm somebody that they want to engage with at the moment, even if I'm not watching car content. But they know that at some point, whenever I'm going to be searching for buying a new car, that I'm somebody that they want to make sure that I'm top of mind with Audi, and then Audi, the Q5 specifically, is in consideration when I'm looking for that next vehicle. And not necessarily that I'm going to click on this ad today, but just the fact that they're making sure that like I'm top of mind, they're continuing to engage with me on a regular basis, just so we could have that opportunity for a conversion down the line. And I know we talk a lot about YouTube and the ecosystem. It's very, very large, and there's a lot of different products that we have. In Audi's example, they're really kind of looking more from like a consideration standpoint, because as you can see here, the click to action is really about learning more. But if there's goals that we're looking for from like an action standpoint, if we're looking to drive subscribers to our YouTube channel, if we're looking for awareness or consideration, there's a slew of products that we could leverage on the YouTube ecosystem. And we want to make sure that we're distilling this down as much as we can, because we could kind of get lost and we kind of get focused on one specific thing. So what we've actually started to do is take a look at YouTube from more of a macro standpoint and try to simplify it. And what we ended up coming up with was a YouTube maturity curve. There's 6 components of the maturity curve, which we'll walk through right now. But it helps give us an idea of where do we really need to focus, and we can start developing playbooks for YouTube to say like, okay, we are performing well in one specific area, but we know that it's going to take time to get there. We're not going to get there overnight. So the first part of the maturity curve that we take a look at is goals. This is probably the most impactful and important component of the maturity curve. If we don't have a really good set of goals, we want to make sure that it's going to set up our foundation, and this is going to make sure that we're set up for long-term success. And when we talk about goals, it's not just media goals, but we want to make sure that the media goals actually align to business goals and business objectives. So one of the big things that we could discuss is just making sure that our goals from our media campaigns align to these bigger things. So if a business has an objective of trying to win back lapsed buyers, or if we're trying to like go into a new audience segment, we want to make sure that our media goals are aligned to those which helps us when we start to think about like the planning perspective. And once we have the goals, this then leads to the audience. Who do we want to target? Going back to the Audi example, Audi knows that I'm somebody who has an affinity for cars. That's somebody that they may want to talk to. If we talk about going after lapsed buyers or a brand new net new audience, we want to make sure that we have a very clear audience strategy and understand who that audience is. What are they engaging with? What are the psychographics, the demographics? This way we could be a little bit more targeted and streamlined in terms of how we're going to go about from a planning standpoint. And arguably, probably the most important is just like how much are we leveraging our first-party data? We talk about cookie deprecation all the time right now in the environment. So making sure that we actually have a really good set of first-party data that we can then take back and model off of and say like, okay, like we understand that these are our top performers. These are the people that are most engaged with us. How can we find more of them? Or how can we continue to engage with them in a better sense? So leveraging first-party data is really going to be the most impactful from the audience standpoint, and then we can build out from there. Then once we have clear goals and we have a good audience strategy, now we can start moving into planning. So we understand who the audience is, we understand what the goals are from the business perspective and how that translates to the media perspective. Now we can start to understand where do we want to actually engage with these folks and how do we want to engage with these folks. So again, this is just like a nice streamlined perspective that we could say like, okay, like we have this huge ecosystem. Now that we have these first three things identified, now we can start to figure out like, here's the inventory that we want to go after, here's the products that we want to leverage. And it's just like a nice simple way that we can start to break down this larger ecosystem. And we talk about planning, as Angela was actually mentioning a few minutes ago as well, it's not just YouTube, and it's not just in a silo. We want to make sure that when we're starting to plan from a YouTube perspective and using the YouTube products, but how does this actually fit into the larger streaming program that we're actually doing? How is this actually tied to the social video or social campaigns that we're doing? And then also, how is this impacting our paid search campaigns? How is this impacting our organic? How is this impacting our direct traffic? How is this impacting store traffic? So when we talk about planning, it's not just YouTube and how YouTube is driving some sort of performance from YouTube, but it's also how is this interacting and how does this fit into the larger video ecosystem. And then once we get through the first three, now we get into creative. Arguably the most fun of all the components of the maturity curve. So we want to start to understand the goals, the audience, and then the media that we're going to end up placing against. Now we can start to develop the creative. The creative should align with who the audience actually is, the medias that we're going to be using, so and the products that we're going to end up using. So we want to make sure that we have a really good creative strategy that goes along with that. Developing a good creative testing program as well is going to be very ideal for developing the right creative, because we know that creative A may work really well with this type of user, but creative B may work much better with this other type of user. So we want to make sure that we're also thinking about like not just repurposing some sort of an ad that we currently have, but how are we thinking about it a little bit more strategically and just continuing to learn and iterate off of the creative. I would argue that you could have a really great planned out campaign with a great audience and a great set of goals, but if your creative falls flat, you might not necessarily have the best performance or the performance that you were expecting to have. Also, the thing to note with creative as well is the story arc for YouTube specifically is a little bit different. A lot of the media that we use is going to be the skippable format, so the first 5 seconds is going to be very, very impactful. So if we are leveraging a 15-second or a 30-second ad that's built more for TV and doesn't have a really strong story arc within the first 5 seconds, we want to make sure that our creative is actually a little bit more customized for YouTube specifically, and we're not just repurposing things that we have on other media channels. This is going to be a way that we can start to really identify like how the creative is actually working, how it's resonating with our specific audience users, and then start to iterate off of there. And the fifth one is content optimization. This is probably the one that I would say is probably underutilized the most. And it's not necessarily tied to a media-specific type of engagement or interaction. But content optimization is, as you're looking at how I specifically use YouTube, is talking about how do we make sure that we are posting content on our YouTube channel on a regular basis so this way people can engage from like a life cycle perspective. So now we're talking a little bit more about life cycle and not just paid media. But how are people engaging with your YouTube channel on a regular basis, and are we dropping relevant content that's relevant to them? This also leans really heavily into influencers. So influencers are obviously a big topic right now as well. We want to make sure that we're engaging with people who could also help expand our audience or just be like a different voice that can help get our narrative out there from an influencer standpoint. So when we talk about content optimization, it really encapsulates how are we doing from an organic standpoint, from a creative standpoint. And last but certainly not least is measurement. So we do all of these things, great. How are we going to measure it? This is definitely not the easiest component of it, but I will turn it over to Lauren to walk you through how we've actually seen measurement work.
Fantastic. Okay. Well, thank you, Brian. Okay, so as we get into everyone's favorite topic, measurement, I'd love to get a sense of where we're at in the room. So to answer the question, how comfortable are you with measurement on YouTube? First, can I get a show of hands? Raise your hand if A, it could be better. Don't be shy. Amazing. Okay, B, you're working on it. And finally, raise your hand if C, you're fully up and running. Okay, well, appreciate the very candid participation. I know that this is definitely a potential area that needs some clarification. That's what we're here to talk about today. So as marketers, we know the importance of meeting the consumer where they're at. We really, as Angela mentioned, need to stop assuming that digital video advertising operates in a silo. When we talk about digital video, we're talking YouTube and OTT or streaming media. So I'll share a personal anecdote with you all as well. I too am a member of the Multiple Screens at Once Club. It really is a lifestyle at this point. A few weekends ago, I was watching one of those infamous celebrity what I eat in the day videos on my mobile app, my YouTube mobile app, when I was first served an ad from Hulu. So what's really interesting to me about this example is that for me to go watch this Hulu original piece of content, I think honestly, a lot of us might think of Hulu and Netflix when we think streaming. And as Angela mentioned, YouTube accounts for well over double the watch time that we see on Hulu. But even Hulu, even a content platform themselves know that they can reach their audience on YouTube. So I certainly was not going to click away from the original piece of content I sought out to watch, but I was able to queue up that next thing to watch on connected TV. And I think what's really exciting about YouTube for us as marketers is that it's an incredibly scalable platform. So we know that this audience is broad and deep, and it's really ripe for us to address as advertisers. However, we want to think about, as marketers, we cannot go spending dollars without understanding outcomes and showing these outcomes. It's pretty typical that performance marketing budgets might be skewed towards easier to prove or measurable platforms and channels when we think about display or search or things like this. But we're asking questions today, so we really want to know how can we find that proper YouTube strategy that works for our brand, and how can we make it impactful via measurement? Because we know that digital video media is that major growth area of the 2020s. It's growing at a compound annual growth rate of 12.1% from 2021 to 2028, according to eMarketer forecasts. And this growth is really being driven from people migrating away from linear media, especially when we narrow in on adults aged 25 to 54. That trend accelerates, and as we see demand and consumption grow year over year. So latest Nielsen projections are showing that a lot of those people in our target demographic are really migrating away from linear, especially if they're cord cutters or cord nevers. Getting to digital video, what makes it so attractive to us as marketers is that it is impression-based, so it's one-to-one. Think about when you run an ad on a digital video platform, you know there is someone else on the other end of it. And so with the goal of de-risking and diversifying our marketing portfolio, we can think about all of the things that made TV great, telling a story through the magic of sight and sound and motion in one of our ads, while also getting to apply all of the wonderful things that we've learned from digital over the last several years, where we can think about targeting tactics, third-party, first-party data, as Brian mentioned, and apply that as we think about our YouTube strategy. YouTube really is that cross-channel video. So We really want to think about measurement starting from the place of platform level attribution. So that's where we're going to get the basic insights into, how are conversions being driven, thinking about engaged view conversion, click-through conversion, view-through conversions, all across devices. But we really want to be able to take that a step further, and that's what is pretty exciting to us. As marketers, again, it's incredibly important that we think about experimentation in any foundation of a modern marketing strategy, especially when we think about YouTube as it's the largest digital video solution in the world. So leveraging incrementality frameworks can showcase what that added value of YouTube is and allow us to have an apples to apples view of performance across all of our digital video or streaming impressions, and also across the broader marketing ecosystem. So we'll touch on two of these methodologies today. We're all readily able to set these up, starting with a geo experiment. So think location-based testing, where we would serve ads to a set of DMAs, hold out our ads in a separate set of DMAs in our control group and other geographies, and then analyze the difference between these groups of that behavior when both groups understand the baseline behavior of that, what people would do if they were not shown one of our ads. Second, we have lift studies. So this is user-based testing, where we would create a treatment group where we would serve our ads, and hold out ads from a control group and be able to analyze the difference in the response rates. Here, we can also leverage Google's platform-native ghost ad bidding methodologies, and this is very helpful to us to avoid costly testing things going into this. So really, we want to be able to answer that question: what is the true impact of video? And understand, how are people who see our ads differing from those who don't see our ads, and what steps are they taking following an impression? So really, as we don't want to be vacuous in answering this question of does YouTube work, we know we need to show competitive CPAs. And with YouTube, what's really exciting to us about it is not only can we show successful outcomes, but we can actually do so at scale, and very significant scale at that. So recently, we were able to leverage incremental experimental methodologies. In a recent scenario we managed where we achieved mid-funnel YouTube conversions that were nearly 30% more efficient than the average incremental digital video CPA. And this was all at about the very significant scale, roughly 7 times the weekly spend on any other single network where we were running ads. So this is really part of how we're developing our overarching product strategy in this world of signal loss, where we know that experimentation is incredibly important as responsible and smart marketers, and often combining that with portfolio modeling tools. So with that, we started this session, want to bring it back to our original title: how can we make the full YouTube ecosystem work for your brand? And to answer that question, we'll leave you with a few key takeaways here, starting off with remembering that YouTube really influences you as an individual, touches multiple parts of your life. We want to be able to meet that consumer where they're at throughout their day. Second, we want to connect with that audience, so really utilize a holistic strategy here so we can effectively engage with them, as Brian talked about, defining a goal, having a plan, serving the proper creative at the proper time. And lastly, remembering that there are multiple methodologies for us to apply measurement and really show that true impact, that added value of YouTube when you're looking across your overall marketing portfolio. And we want to thank you for spending some time with us today. If you have additional questions, all three will be at the speaker lounge just outside, so you can come find us afterwards. And following this session, we'll have everyone go back to the main stage for our next session. Thank you.